natatakot.
Been feeling left behind? Does the knowledge gap hinder your success? Worry no more, because Philippine Workshops is here to serve you. We provide relevant and valuable webinars, trainings, and workshops nationwide that will help you make your own opportunities happen. For more details, please visit our Facebook page.
A pleasant morning to everyone, and welcome to Philippine Workshop's webinar entitled Visual Storytelling Capture Moments One Frame at a Time. This event is dedicated to provide a brief overview about photography and visual storytelling. But before anything else, please allow me first to introduce myself. I am Zaira Salutan, and I am your host for today. We would also like to greet our participants in today's Zoom session, as well as our viewers in our Facebook live stream. A wonderful morning to everyone once again. We would like to give a few reminders to our participants before we formally begin our event. First, if possible, keep your cameras on for the entire duration of the event. Second, please keep your audio on mute unless you're asked to speak, and keep your messages in the Zoom chat respectful at all times. Third, for the open forum segment, please make sure to keep your questions respectful and relevant. All questions are to be asked through the chat feature of Zoom. Fourth and last, we are offering optional e-certificates to our participants. To those who wish to avail one for only 30 pesos, please fill up the evaluation form, which will be sent here in the Zoom chat and on the comments section of our Facebook live stream. Okay, now that we're done with our house rules, let's start with a short prayer followed by the singing of the Philippine national anthem.
Let us bow our heads and put ourselves in the presence of the Lord. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for gathering all of us today. May you bestow your guidance and blessings so that we can enjoy and appreciate its significance in our lives. Bless everyone who are present here today, that each one of us may be able to share our knowledge, understanding, and wisdom for your glory and honor. May the various activities related to this event be a success through your intervention. We all ask of this in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Philippine national anthem.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
So there we have it. Syempre, let's ask our participants muna how they're feeling at the moment. Everyone, please type in the chat box an emoticon which represents what you're feeling right now. For our viewers in our Facebook live stream, please give it a heart reaction and please do share our events to others. Okay. Okay. Heart reaction from Mr. Patrick Lingahan. All right, so it looks like everyone's very much ready and excited to gain new insights from today's webinar, Visual Storytelling, Capture Moments One Frame at a Time. Now, let's get to know more about our guest speaker for today. He is a graduate of Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in Biological Sciences at the University of Santo Tomas, España, Manila in 2010. Currently, he is taking a Master of Arts in Education, major in General Science at the College of Education of the University of the Philippines, Diliman. Currently, he is a senior high school physical science teacher at the University of Santo Tomas Senior High School Science Department. He is also an active member of the UST SHS Permanent Committee on Communication and Publicity. He is also appointed as the organization advisor of the UST Galvanize, the official dance organization of UST SHS. Aside from being an educator, he also spends his time as a professional freelance photographer and a hobbyist videographer. He has multiple photo approval or online publication at Vogue Italia's Photo Vogue. He was also a featured photographer in VHV Fashion Pages, New York, issue number 4, 2020, a fashion magazine published and distributed in Manhattan, New York. Lastly, he is an active member of the UP Fighting Maroon Club as one of its official photographers for the season 84 of UAAP. Without further ado, let us welcome our guest speaker for today, Mr. Jake Rovin Morales. Let us give him a virtual round of applause.
Thank you very much, Syra, for that wonderful introduction. Maraming salamat po to Philippine Workshops for inviting me today on today's virtual live session. Actually, this is quite different from the previous speaking engagements that I had, since today my focus, or the focus of this talk, will be revolving mainly not on my experiences as an educator, but as a creative photographer. Maraming salamat po for inviting me today.
Okay, thank you for that po, Sir Jake. And now that our guest speaker is ready to share his insights and our audience is ready to take in some new learnings and tips, let's begin with our webinar proper. Sir Jake, you may now share your presentation po.
Okay. Can you please give me a moment and I will be sharing my screen. Yeah. Can I ask permission to share screen, please?
Tech.
Ayan, okay na po.
Okay.
Ayan. Can you now see my screen? Can someone verify?
Yes.
Ayan. Maraming salamat po ulit. And of course, I would like to greet everyone who is with us right now in our live feed or live streaming at Facebook. At hopefully, ay meron tayong matutunan at meron tayong mapulot sa small talk na gagawin po natin for today. Hayaan niyo pong simulan ko ang webinar na ito by means of using the phrase that I often use in my classes. Dahil kahit ang pandemya ay hindi sapat na dahilan upang tayo ay tumigil sa pagkatuto at patuloy na tumuklas na makabagong kaalaman at patuloy na paunlarin ang ating mga sarili, welcome to another webinar session organized by Philippine Workshops. At maraming salamat again to Philippine Workshops for organizing this event and making this event possible for everyone. For today, ang ating magiging topic will be about visual storytelling, capture moments one frame at a time. Napakaganda ng title pa lamang po ng ating event, and surely I will be giving a lot of information na makakatulong po sa inyo para po mas ma-improve ninyo ang inyong photography skills. There are some people who are with us in the Facebook Live and also here in the Zoom meeting. And marahil, the reason why you're here right now is una, you're a starting photographer or you're actually aspiring to become a photographer. No? Gusto nating makakuha ng mga bits of information on how we can start photography. Pangalawa, no? You're already doing photography but you're quite clueless kung saan nga ba patungo yung tinatahak nating landas in terms of uh, doing photography. And lastly, you're a professional photographer wherein you still want to learn something new from different photographers. No? Maganda po yan na tayo po ay patuloy na natututo or patuloy na naghahangad ng pagkatuto. No? Even though we already mastered the field or yung skill na kinakailangan natin sa field. Allow me again to introduce myself. Ako po ay si Sir Jake Rovin Morales. Mas kilala po akong Sir Jake. I do not want to be called Mr. Morales kasi medyo nakakatanda yung ganong pagtawag po sa atin. No? Isa po akong guro at isang litratista. No? At dahil po ako ay isang guro, no, hayaan po ninyo na latag ko po sa inyo yung ating magiging facing ng webinar po na ito. Mas maganda kung organized po tayo para meron po tayong guide kung paano natin matatarget yung mga gusto nating makuha or mapulot dito sa webinar na ito. Yeah. Ano nga ba ang goal po natin? No? We have only 2 goals for this particular webinar session. At para ma-maximize natin yung 30 minutes time na binigay po sa atin para makapagbahagi, no? Let us identify them. First is we would like to identify how we can maximize our photography skills. By the way, pagpasensyahan nyo na po no, if I often look at this side of the screen because I have this natural tendency to look at myself while I'm speaking. Siguro kayo din ay gano'n, no? Kapag kayo ay nasa klase ninyo, mas titignan ninyo yung sarili ninyo kaysa yung presentation ng teacher po ninyo. Ayan. And secondly, balik po tayo, no, is to learn how you can start conducting your own photo shoot. No? Medyo mahirap po no, itong gusto nating matalakay or gusto nating matutunan sa araw na ito. Kasi hindi po ito natututunan ng 30 minuto po lamang. No? It will require a lot of experiences and a lot of trial and error and skills para masigurado natin no, that we can attain these particular goals. Yeah. Simulan po natin ang talakayan po natin into the idea of defining what photography is. Ano nga ba ang photography? Based on its etymology or yung origin ng kanyang salita, no? Photography came from 2 words which is photos and graphy, no? Which literally translates to light, photos, and graphy from drawing and or writing. No? So technically, we can define photography as the process of drawing through the use of light. No? This was coined by Mr. or Sir John Herschel in 1839. No? He is a British scientist. No? Pero no, napaka technical ng ganong pamamaraan ng pag-define ng kung ano ang photography. That's why I wanted us to also define photography on our own language. No? In my case, no, I would like to view photography in this sense. Photography carries a very fascinating power. For a photograph, emulates the way that our mind freezes a significant moment. Let me give you an example. No? Parang ano lang, no? Parang nasa TikTok lang tayo. To give you an example, no, I want you to think of a core memory right now, no, na kung saan kaya ninyong ma-identify yung mga bagay-bagay na nakita ninyo or naranasan ninyo in that particular moment. To give you an example, last night I was thinking of what core memory that I would like to share for today's webinar session. At naisip ko, ang isang insidente na nangyari sa faculty room namin when I was still working at the National University. Pumasok yung co-teacher ko and then dumiretso siya sa kanyang carrel and she's seated on her seat. Unfortunately, yung kanyang upuan ay nasira at lumusot yung kanyang puwet or yung siya mismo ay lumusot doon sa particular na upuan na yun. No? Shoutout sa iyo, Ma'am Luisa, kung ikaw po ay nanonood sa ating session po ngayon. No? Pagpasensyahan mo na no, kung nabanggit ko ang ating experiences na yon. No? In that particular moment, tumatak sa utak ko yung pangyayari na yon kasi ako mismo, yung katabi niya, noong nangyari yung incidente na yon, no, at which I can clearly remember vividly rather, no, yung makalat niyang desk, no, or yung maraming mga piles of checkables, no, na nandoon sa desk niya, at yung kulay ng upuan nung panahon na yon, no, at kung paano at kung ano yung itsura niya nung siya ay nasa pagitan na ng mga upuan nung siya ay nahulog, no. Coincidentally, no, kung tatanungin ako, no, she always recalls that particular memory, no. Kasi sa akin, ang saya-saya nung ganong memory na yun kasi nakakatawa talaga, no. Pero in her particular case, no, she will always recall it as ang sama namin, ba't kayo ganyan, friends, no? Bakit kami ganun klaseng kaibigan? Kasi mas inuna pa naming tawanan siya bago namin siya tulungan, no. Maaari ang kanyang perspektibo, ang kanyang vision in that particular moment is very different from us, no. At ayun yung goal, no, ng photography, no, is to capture a particular moment and freeze it, no. Maaring ibang-iba ang perspective niya on my case, no. This particular detailed memory produced by our consciousness does not just define the event, but actually it also identifies the emotional attachment of us in that particular moment, no. And this rather is what photography is capable of tapping into when we present a photograph to a viewer, no. Ganun ka powerful ang isang photo or ang field ng photography, no. Kasi may kakayahan siya na magbigay lamang hindi lamang ng imahe, no, but rather ma-translate niya yung emosyon na nararanasan ng mga taong involved in that particular event, no, sa kanyang magiging future audience. Ganon kaganda ang photography. And in the beginning of this pandemic, no, kung natatandaan ninyo, March of 2020, no, ay nagkaroon ng lockdown. And isa sa mga naging hobby ko while I was stuck in my house is mag-take ng pictures from our terrace. At kapag may pagkakataon, no, na lumabas sa streets para pamunta sa mga tindahan and the like, no, I try to take photos, random street photos of people around, no. At makikita natin, no, by means of looking at these photos, no, kung gaano nga ba kalungkot at kung gaano nga ba kalaki yung impact ng pandemya during that particular time, no. Walang katao-tao sa paligid, no. Kung meron lamang, no, ito yung mga taong mga walang tirahan at they have no other choice but to stay on the streets, no. At ang tanging panangga lamang nila sa pandemya is yung face mask na meron po sila. Wala kang makikitang mga sasakyan na dumadaan sa mga kalsada, no. We also see the firefighters na nagsasaboy or i-spray na mga disinfectant in the streets, no, especially in the first week of the pandemic, no, naging patuloy itong ginagawa ng ating mga firefighters para masubukang ma-neutralize or mapigilan, no, yung paggalat ng unknown virus na kinakaharap natin in that particular moment. Yeah. We also see some people, no, na ang tangi lamang nilang masisilungan ay ang kanilang mga sidecars na hindi naman na ganoon kaganda yung kondisyon, no. And we also see some people at night. Ako kasi medyo since matagal akong na-stuck sa bahay, no. Mas nagkaroon ako ng pagkakataon na tumingin at magnilay-nilay sa labas ng terrace namin at tignan yung mga tao kung paano sila namumuhay in the time of pandemic. And we see some people, no, who have no choice but to sleep in the streets along with those kittens, no, or those cats, no, na nasa paligid na wala ring matuluyan or wala ring masilungan during that particular time. Ganon ka-powerful ang photograph, no, that by means of showing you these images, I hope and I assume, no, that you somehow managed to go back in time during that particular time at ma-visualize, no, kung ano nga ba yung nararamdaman at nararanasan ng mga tao in that particular moment. Pero syempre, ang photograph ay hindi lamang puro kalungkutan. Meron din itong magandang hatid na function, no, which is to remind us of the beautiful things that is happening in our environment. Allow me to present to you some photos captured by Mr. Paul Kembao. Kung kayo po ay isang Tomasino or isang Tomasya, no, maaaring narinig at nakita ninyo na itong mga imahe na to ng University of Santo Tomas, na kung saan pinapakita niya hindi lamang ang ganda ng arkitektura or ng architecture of the university, but also it also shows us, no, yung mga nararanasan nito, no, in the time of calamities. No, alam naman natin na ang UST ay nagiging isang swamp or nagiging isang beach resort, no, kapag tag-ulan, no, at hindi lamang siya sobrang babaw na kaya nating maglahad, no. Nagkakaroon ng pagkakataon na kagaya nito ay merong mga boats, no. Meron pang pagkakataon na nagkaroon ng jet ski, no, sa labas ng Espanya ng UST. Yan. We also see some images of the University of Santo Tomas, how majestic it is, even in black and white without color. No? Ganun kaganda ang imahe ng UST. Si Paul Kembao actually is my inspiration on why I become a photographer. No? At isa yan sa step na kailangan yung gawin, no? Kung paano kayo magiging isang magaling na photographer. No? This is his most famous photo, at which, no, he won the grand prize for the 400th year anniversary of the University of Santo Tomas. No? So for a student category, no, ito yung nanalo ng grand prize for the quadricentennial photography contest ng UST. And eventually, no, doon ko naisip, no, paano nga ba magiging isang photographer kagaya ni Paul Kembao? And ayun din yung gusto kong i-share sa inyo ngayon, no. How to become a professional photographer, no? Siguro nakita ninyo na itong meme na ito when you're browsing on social media, no? Every monkey with a camera thinks he's a photographer. Nag-agree ba kayo dito? Thumbs up nga kung yes, or thumbs down kung hindi. Lahat ba ng bigyan natin ng isang professional camera ay makukonsider na nating photographer? Ayan, merong mga nagta-thumbs up at meron din namang puro thumbs up, no? Ayan. Mabuti, no, kung ayun ang ating nagiging perspektibo, no? Kasi minsan sa ilang mga photographers, no, they actually agree with this kind of particular meme, no? Na hindi daw porket meron kang camera ay makukonsider ka na photographer, no? Which is somehow maaaring totoo, no? Pero in my perspective, no, the first step into becoming a good photographer is to having the right gear para ma-practice mo yung field na gusto mong gawin. No? Wala namang isang tao na nagising na lamang na doktor na siya. Wala namang isang tao na nagising na lamang photographer na siya agad. No? It takes a long time and a series of process para ma-attain mo yung status na gusto mong makuha. No? And the first step is to getting your gears. No? Paano nga ba tayo magkakaroon ng mga imahe na kagaya nito? These are my photos. Some of them are my students. No? And some of them are professional photographers. Professional models rather. No? Ma-identify ba natin dito kung sino ang model sa hindi? No? Maaring siguro hindi dahil napakaganda at napakagaling pumost ng aking mga estudyante. No? At dahil yun, no, na rin siguro sa pagbibigay natin ng tamang instructions sa kanila. So paano nga ba natin ma-attain yung mga gantong klase ng images na gusto nating makuha? No? First is you have to familiarize yourself with the gears that you're using. No? Kailangan alam mo kung ano yung limitation ng iyong camera kasi not all cameras are the same. No? When I began in photography, no, nagsimula ako sa isang second-hand camera na yung specs niya ay hindi ganun kaganda. No? And since it has its own limitation, ay nalimitahan din nun, no, yung kakayahan ko, no, para makakuha or makapag-capture ng mga magagandang larawan. No. Pero, dahil nga alam ko yung limitations niya, I was able to maximize the use of that particular gear that I have. Naalala ko, no, na yung second-hand camera na yon, siya ay, yung lens niya ay sira pa, yung autofocus. So siguro naging maganda na rin yon para sa akin, no, kasi na-practice ko yung sarili ko, no, kung paano mag-focus ng camera para makakuha ng sharp images kahit sira yung lente na gamit ko. Yan. And siguro isa sa magandang tip na may share ko sa inyo, no, is to try to take photos using manual setup. No, minsan nakakatakot bilang isang owner ng camera, no, na gumamit ng manual setting. Pero madali lang naman yan kung iisipin. No? Of course, kailangan mo mag-practice para magawa yon. And siguro i-identify mo lang, no, kung kailan mo siya gagamitin at kailan hindi. Kasi hindi naman nilagay yung mga auto functions ng camera para maging display lamang. No? Pwede mo rin siyang gamitin. So hindi masama na gumamit ng auto setting or ng sports or ng macro sa camera ninyo. No? Walang masama doon, kaya nga nandun yun para magamit po natin. Pero maganda rin, no, na matutunan natin on how to use the manual. At paano nga ba natin gagawin yon? This is the basics of photography. No? At para mas madali ninyong maintindihan, no, I have taken this image from the internet, no, na kung saan may tatlo kasi tayong dapat tignan, no, in setting up our camera. First is our aperture. The idea of the aperture is that the wider it gets, the more light it allows the camera to enter, no. At when you do that, no, ay nagiging bokeh or nagiging blur yung likod ng ating background ng isang image, no. Pero you have to be careful in utilizing this particular function of the camera, no? Kasi minsan yung ibang mga photographers, basta blurred yung background, professional na. Hindi naman po palaging ganon, no? It depends on the situation kung kailan natin gagamitin itong bokeh function ng ating mga lenses at ng ating camera. Yan. As you can see, no, the smaller the number, the wider the aperture gets, and the larger the number, the smaller the aperture becomes, no. In terms of shutter speed naman, no, is I always try to make use of the highest number possible, no, para ma-freeze natin or ma-focus natin ng maayos yung isang image, no. Kasi the more slower the shutter speed, mas nagiging blurry yung ating image. Pero minsan, no, effective din yung gantong setup sa camera natin, no, kasi we are creating motion, no, mas napapakita natin yung motion ng isang bagay. Ayan, no. Itong dalawang ito, yung madalas na ina-adjust ko when it comes to setting up my camera, no. Always, the aperture is at its lowest, and then saka ako mag-a-adjust sa shutter speed natin. Ang tip dyan is titignan mo yung lens na gagamitin mo, no? And you multiply the value of it tapos by 2, no? At ayun yung best na shutter speed na pwede mong gamitin. Let's say for example, you're using a 600 mm, no? Ako ay nag-start ako lagi into 1200, no? For that, no, para ma-freeze ko yung image na aking gustong makuhana. And lastly is the ISO. No, it is the last thing that you need to adjust in setting up your camera, no, kasi when you increase the ISO sensitivity of the camera, no, you make the image more lighter. Pero when you do that, ay mas nagiging grainy yung ating image, and we don't want that, no, unless you wanted your image to look like an old film, no? Maari yung ganon, no? Depende kasi sa style po natin. So generally, to get this kind of sharp image, no, this is a photo that I took for the UP Fighting Maroons Club, no, when UAAP is against Ateneo. I made sure that my aperture is wide open and the shutter speed is as high as possible, no, but not too high na magiging sobrang dark na yung ating image, no. And the ISO is at its possible lowest point, no, na kung saan hindi siya grainy and hindi rin siya sobrang dark. Ayan. Second is to identify, no, and expose yourself with different shooting environment. Isa sa magandang way on how you can capture moments is to practice by means of watching sports no? Kung makikita niyo itong dalawang larawan na to, may pagkakaiba sila. One is a bit grainy and the other one is in good quality or in good condition. Ako parehas ang kumuha na itong dalawang larawan na to, no? But the first one, the one on the left, I when the first time I watched an event at the Ateneo Gym, at sobrang nahirapan ako ma-adjust ng aking setting. And yung pangalawa is yung medyo nakapag-adjust na po ako. Yan, no? By means of exposing yourself frequently on different type of situation, no, ay eventually, no, ay makakapag-adjust ka rin naman. Yeah. Technically nga, no, masasabi natin na trial and error din ang photography. Yan. Lastly, in improving your skill, no, as a photographer, the main tip that I always tell my students or my proteges sa aking organization before, no, is do not just point and shoot, no. Kasi ang camera po natin ay may buhay din, no. So as much as possible, you take just a good amount of photos, no, and try to make sure, no, that when you point your camera, you're hitting the right image, no, na gusto mo talagang makuha, no? Kasi sayang ang picture kung hindi naman maganda yung composition mo. Yeah, so here are good examples on photography, sports photography, wherein I have captured actions and moments. Pero hindi lamang naman yung mga ganong moments ang inaasahan nating makuha, no, into doing sports photography, no. Maaring makakuha rin tayo ng mga gandang emosyon, no, of audience praying, no, na sana manalo yung kanilang team, on athletes that are celebrating, no. And by means of doing that, we're delivering our audience to that particular moment at mararamdaman din nila, no, yung emosyon na nararamdaman ng mga atleta natin. Yan. Ay, meron pa palang isa, sorry. You have to explore different genre and identify which best fit you. Kung mapapansin ninyo, no, from sports, marami rin po akong ibang klase ng photography na sinubukan, no. I have some aesthetic photos, no, merong mga composite, merong mga conceptual, merong mga creative photos, boudoir, fashion photography. I also did graduation photography, maternity shoots, product shoots, no. Tawag dito, baby shoot, no, yung mga newborn baby, no. And also I tried, no, yung landscape photography na ginagawa ng idol ko na si Paul Kembao, no. But I think it's not for me yung ganong klase ng photo. Then eventually, I have found my love into doing fashion photography. Yung pag-take ng pictures of high fashion models, maximizing their features, no, para mapakita natin kung gaano kaganda yung ating mga models. And yung products na rin as well. No? So paano nga ba tayo makakapag-start ng ating own photoshoot? Kasi ito yung nakalagay sa caption po ng ating mga posters, no? How to conduct your own photo shoot. I actually had 3 open photo shoot organized before na, no? Yung major talaga na photo shoot. We have Descend, which is in collaboration with Don Cristobal. He is a fashion designer. He has done a lot of costumes that won best in national costume in both in local and internationally. No? We also have Alta, no, which was participated by non-professional models. These people are my co-teachers. Akalain mo ba mga teachers yung mga yan, no? Na umi-emote sa may hagdanan ng Parks and Wildlife. Sa Parks and Wildlife lang po yan. No? And we have some random mga Facebook friends na nakilala na rin po natin that got interested into joining my particular event. No? May mga bata. All ages ay sumali dyan sa ating open photo shoot na yan. And we also have a conceptual photo shoot that I did in my garage, sa garahe po ng aming bahay. Akalain mo, yung tubig na yan, no? Ay sa garahe lamang po yan. No? I did some composite photos, no? Na kung saan nilagyan ko ng mga koi fishes, yung tubig, no? Pero totoo po yung tubig. Totoong nakasubmerge sa tubig itong mga models po natin. No? These are my students as well who participated in that particular open photo shoot. At ang ginawa lang po namin dyan, I borrowed a inflatable pool, tapos kumuha lang po tayo ng telang itim at naglagay ng maraming halaman at tinapatan ng ilaw yung ating setup. And here we go, no? Meron tayong magandang image, no, na hindi mo akalain na ginawa lamang sa isang garahe ng isang bahay. Ayan, no? So our first step for you to come up with a photo shoot and to organize your own photo shoot is to search for concepts and peg, no? Marami po tayong mga possible na makukuhang inspiration into creating our own photo shoot, no? Here's an example, no. Ito pong picture na ito ng aking student sa aming school, no. Ay naisip ko dahil magkakaroon ng Mama Mary celebration, no, yung celebration natin, no, for Mother Mary. At naisip namin i-transform yung isang estudyante namin into Mama Mary herself. No? And I also have a lot of photos, no, na nanggaling sa mga United Nations na kung saan nagkalat ang mga magagandang costume ng mga estudyante. And some are coming from Pinterest and some social media, no, na kung saan I have found inspiration into creating my own concept or my own theme for photo shoot. And we also did some photo shoot. This is Miss Roma May Doromal, no, ang ating sikat na libero ng Ateneo, no, na kung saan we had a photo shoot in a coffee shop. No. Yeah. So maraming possible na inspiration na maaari po tayong makuha by means of just walking around, just browsing the internet, looking at YouTube and TikTok. Ngayon sa TikTok, marami tayong makikita, no, na mga content creators that are doing their own photo shoot in the comforts of their home, transforming their walls into different backgrounds and backdrops, no, para maka-create sila ng magandang image. Secondly, is to inspect your photo shoot location. Ito ang isa sa mga pinaka-importanteng dapat mong gawin when you are organizing a photo shoot. Kailangan familiar ka kung saang mga sites or lugar ng location ninyo ang pwede mong gawing background ng model. Kung saan mo ilalagay yung model mo, no? And saang mga area yung walang ilaw, saang mga area yung maganda yung ilaw, no? Kasi in photography, ang best friend po natin dyan is yung ilaw. Yung magandang liwanag, no? Para makuha natin na maayos yung feature ng model or nung ating gustong kuhanan, no? Kung mapapansin ninyo, no, marami mga estudyante ang gustong mag-picture or mag-selfie sa mga bintana ng mga paaralan nila, no, dahil para sun-kissed daw, no. Hindi lang dahil sun-kissed 'yon. Ayun ay dahil, no, maganda yung tama ng liwanag sa kanila at nakakaganda, nakaka-fresh yung ganong type of liwanag. Ngayon, ako ngayon ay merong beauty light in front of me, no. At mag-iiba yung itsura po natin, no, kapag pinatay po natin yung ilaw po na yan, no. Hindi magiging ganito ka-sharp, walang shadow, no. Lalo po nating mahahalata na mataba po yung speaker po natin, no. So ngayon, makikita natin may pa-jawline po tayo, no. Di ba? Ang ganda. Dahil yan sa magandang ilaw po lamang. Napepeke natin yung mga gusto nating baguhin sa features po natin. Yan. Most commonly, what I look for a location or a good spot wherein I will place my model is when there is a built-in na frame, no, na kung saan pwede natin siyang ilagay, no. Here's a good example, yung nasa gitna po natin na kung saan nilagay po natin siya sa isang bintana, pinaakyat natin yung model para magkaroon siya ng sarili niyang frame, no. At makuha na natin yung image ng maganda. And kung wala naman, no, minsan isinisiksik natin yung model natin into a bush, no, para magmukhang nasasakop siya talaga ng environment po natin, kagaya nitong nasa kaliwa po natin. And worst comes to worst, no, kung wala talagang pwedeng makuhanan, we just find texture on the walls, no, and we play with it. No? So by means of doing that, hindi natin sobrang natatabunan yung model natin ng background natin, na enhance pa natin yung feature ng kanyang gown and nung sariling styling po niya. No? Here's another example wherein I did a composite shot, no, of that particular framing. Yan, no? Minsan on the streets din, no, good murals, no, are good site for photos. And also, when there is leading line, no, meron tayong lines na nakikita into the image, no, magandang pwedeng gawin natin yan as a background, no, and to separate our subject to the background as well. Yan. So, nagkakaroon ng depth. So, ito yung bokeh na tinatawag natin. Malabo yung likod, tapos yung ating subject is sharp. No? Yan. Tip number 3 is to conduct test shoot. Huwag kayong mapagod na i-test or subukan or sumubok na maraming bagay, no, when doing a photo shoot. And minsan, no, sino nga ba yung makakatulong natin in conducting or doing a test shoot? Andiyan dyan po ang ating mga co-teachers, estudyante, kamag-anak, no? Yan. Yung mga kamag-anak po natin ay pwede natin gawing model, no? Or gamitin natin sila, no, para makakuha tayo ng magandang imahe. So by means of doing that, we practice how we can position the light or how we can change a particular angle para malaman natin, no, kung paano tayo makakuha ng magandang imahe. Yeah. Salamat po sa mga students at mga co-teachers at models na pinapakita ko po ngayon. No? Hindi po ako nakapagpaalam sa kanila, but since I own the photos, I have the right to do so. Yeah. And number 4 is to learn how to post-process photos. Ito yung kalaban ng ilang mga seasoned photographers na not everyone is willing pa para matuto kung paano i-proseso yung photos nila. Because sometimes, no, maganda yung image pero hindi maganda yung quality or hindi maganda yung lighting. Kaya pa po siyang i-adjust. No? Ayun yung kagandahan ng digital photography. No? We can still enhance a not so good photo to make it a good photo. No? And the basic of it, no, is try to test it on yourself muna. No? Subukan mo. Kasi ikaw mismo alam mo kung ano yung mga flaws mo. No? Siyempre, hindi naman tayo lahat pinanganak na kagaya ng mga Koreano na sobrang kinis ng mga mukha. No? So, mapapractice mo yan sa sarili mo. No? Na, ay, parang ayoko nang may line ako dito sa side na to ng mukha ko or meron akong line sa noo ko, yung ganyan. Ay, may malaki akong tagihawat dito and dyan. No? Practicein po natin na mag-post-process ng sarili po natin. Tapos saka natin i-apply sa iba. At hindi po lahat, no, ay maganda yung nagiging outcome. No? This is my photos when I started photography. Ngayon, kapag tinitignan ko siya, natatawa ko kung anong itsura dyan sa mga picture na yan. Diyos ko naman, napaka-harsh ng mga ilaw. May patigre pa sa likod. Kamusta naman yan? No? Tapos may kinukuha ng liwanag si ate girl. No? So, doon pa lang, no, parang, hala, ano bang iniisip ko kung bakit ko ginawa yung mga picture na yan, no? Pero eventually, no, kung hindi ko naman ginawa itong mga experimentations na to, hindi ako mapupunta or mapapadpad doon sa kung paano na yung workflow ng aking pag-edit ng pictures ngayon. No? That eventually, no, I was able to to form a more appealing na composite photos. No? It has a blank background before, no? Pero inedit na lamang po natin yan, yung background niya. I also was able to add deers in a photo, no? Ang original photo niya ay itong model lamang po na ito, no? At dinagdag lamang po natin yung mga animals dyan sa image na yan, no? So kinakailangan maging familiar tayo dito sa mga basic tools ng ating Photoshop. Paano, no? Hindi po ba kayo magtuturo? I had a skin retouching photo, no? Skin retouching video sa YouTube na maaari niyong tignan, no, kung gusto niyong malaman, no, kung paano natin ma-attain yung skin na may texture pa rin pero makinis, no, yung mga ganyan, no. Maaari natin siyang i-view kung gusto niyo lang naman, no, itong video na ito, no. And kung ayaw nyo ng video ko, maaari rin kayong tumingin ng iba pang mga videos. No? Nagkalat ang mga videos sa YouTube na nagtuturo sa atin ng iba't ibang mga skills on how we can navigate on Photoshop. Yan. And eventually, from that exposed photo, I have found kung paano nga ba mag-take ng photos na hindi sobrang ini-edit, wherein na ipapakita natin yung natural beauty ng mga models po natin. These are some photos na na-approve ng Vogue Italia, in Photo Vogues. These are my students and my co-teacher, and a friend model, So hindi mo akalain na yung mga ganyang simpleng tao ay makikita pala natin sa mga international websites such as Vogue Italia. Yeah. And lastly, tip number 5 is to make and nurture connections with peers. Ito ang isa sa mga pinaka-importanteng dapat mong ma-develop if you want to have your own photo shoot. Siyempre, sino nga bang magpapapicture sa'yo kung hindi mo naman dinevelop yung iyong connections with other people. And sometimes when you also do that, when you develop those kinds of relationship with people, you get to meet people na maaari kang tulungan para mas ma-enhance pa yung iyong photography skill. You'll meet photographers, co-photographers with more experience than you are. You'll meet models, celebrities, and you also meet what do you call this? Makeup artist, stylist, lahat po yan ay importante sa isang magandang photograph, or sa isang magandang photo shoot. Yeah. So here are some people that I met in my journey as a photographer. I have met some celebrities and famous makeup artists. And ito, siguro, last step, para kayo ay makapagsimula ng inyong photography journey, you have to join workshops, para matuto po tayo, The first workshop that I joined was organized by Mr. MJ Suwayan, na kung saan we have a series of photographers, na mga gusto ring matuto mag-picture, at meron siyang mga hinahire na mga models and makeup artists para ma-organize yung event na yon. And then they will teach you the basics on how to take photos, how to edit photos, At mas maganda yon kasi mas actual or face-to-face yung setup. Ayan. So to end my talk, sakto lang yung oras ko, medyo sumobra, pagpasensyahan nyo na po. Una, find your motivation, and you have to start. Kapag meron ka ng motivation, meron ka ng inspiration doon sa photography, ay kailangan simulan mo, Humanap ka na ng gears mo, mag-try ka na mag-practice. Yeah. You have to learn from the best, Expose yourself with different people who are already known in the field, And by means of just looking at their works and the like, ay matututo ka at ma-apply mo yung kanilang mga skill sets din, Ako, marami akong inspiration sa buhay, in terms of photography. Andiyan dyan sina MJ Cachero, MJ Suwayan, si na Richard Gatmaitan, Manny Lebrodo, and the like. Those are, to name a few, And meron din mga internationals, sina Brandon Wolfel, did I pronounce his name correctly? Basta si Brandon, the one who take photos of low light situations. Ayan. And also, apply and practice. Huwag tayong mapagod mag-practice para ma-enhance natin yung skills po natin. And lastly, take risk. Kailangan mong subukan dahil kung hindi mo susubukan, hindi mo malalaman kung kaya mo pa. Yan. Maraming salamat po for giving me the opportunity to share some of my experiences and expertise in the field of photography. Medyo marami pa akong gustong sabihin, pero we have only a limited time. So maraming salamat po.
Thank you for that very insightful presentation, Pastor Jake. Indeed, photography is very powerful because it preserves a significant moment in our lives that we can relive over and over just by looking at the images. And we also learn that to become a professional photographer, we must familiarize ourselves with our camera gears because when we know the limitations, we can be able to maximize the features of the camera, and we also learn to expose ourselves with different shooting environments and explore different genres and identify which best represents us. And of course, find motivation and learn from the best and take risks. So I'm sure our participants gained a better grasp on how they can start conducting their own photo shoot and gave participants an idea on the basics of photography and developing their visual creativity. So to our participants, please ready your questions as we will be proceeding with our open forum segment momentarily. Pero bago tayo mag-proceed to our next segment, Sir Jake, do you want to promote anything else po, such as your business, social media, or any other contacts? Please feel free to do so right now.
Ayan, no, you can visit my Facebook page. It's Litratista Jake Rovin Morales. And on my Instagram, it's at Jake Rovin. Ayan po yung aking mga social media platforms na kung saan active po tayo. Active din po tayo sa TikTok, pero syempre since minsan ginagamit din natin yon, no, in promoting our our photography, no, mas madalas po tayo into sharing into Facebook page and on Instagram.
Ayan. Please support Sir Jake. And now let's move on to our open forum. To our participants, please send in your questions right now. So you can send them here in the here. Which photo editing software is better, Lightroom or Photoshop?
On my personal perspective, mas madalas kong ginagamit yung Photoshop. It's because I'm more familiar with it. Pero eventually, no, in terms of color grading or adjusting the color, mas prefer ko ang Lightroom. No? Siguro, so to answer that question, it will depend on the need, no, nung photo itself. No? Kung maraming kailangang i-adjust sa photo, I prefer that you will use Photoshop, Adobe Photoshop. Pero kung color lang naman yung i-adjust and the like, no, Lightroom po tayo. Mas madali po ito.
Okay. So, out of all your photos, which one is your favorite and why?
Siguro isa sa pinaka-paborito kong photo was the first photo that was approved in Vogue Italia. No? Kasi napakahirap magpa-approve ng photo sa Vogue Italia. And before that photo was approved, I have already sent probably 100 of photos, no, doon sa website na yon, no. And sobrang kinilabutan talaga ako nung nakita ko na yung unang-unang picture na na-approve sa Vogue Italia. So yeah.
What major challenges did you encounter as a photographer?
Siguro major challenges is when you are dealing with an event na kung saan one time, big time, no, yung mga nangyayari. No? Kaya siguro rin hindi ako mahilig mag-accept ng mga events, photo shoot, no? Kasi sobrang nape-pressure ako, no, na dapat makuhanan ko yung napakagandang moment. Kasi kapag hindi ko nakuhanan, lagot ako, no? Paano yun, no? Hindi ko na-immortalize yung isang particular na juncture ng buhay ng isang kliyente po natin, no? So siguro ayun yung pinaka-challenge po sa akin, no? Dealing with an event client.
Mm-hmm. So any other questions? Sir Jake? Okay, so as an official photographer of the UAAP Season 84, what are the best settings and tips to use for a moving subject like the athletes on game?
Ayan, no, kagaya po nung nabanggit po natin, no, unang-una sa lahat, no, yung ating aperture must be at its lowest, no. And depende po yan kasi sa lens na gagamitin po ninyo. Ako, what I am using is 150 to 600 mm, no. Medyo mahaba yung lens po na yon. And sinasagad ko na lowest yung aking aperture. And then, the next is I try to make sure na yung aking shutter speed will be not less than 1,000, no? 1/1,000, no? Hindi siya dapat bumaba doon, no? Kasi when it's lower than that, the tendency of the photo is to give you a motion blur, no? Yan. So kapag na-set mo na yung tamang timpla nung iyong shutter speed, no? Ay saka mo gagalawin yung iyong ISO, no? And it will be depending on the camera that you're using, no? If you're using a camera na medyo mababa yung ISO sensitivity capability, no, medyo mahihirapan po tayo, no? So I suggest that you invest on a camera that is capable of giving you a high ISO, no? Ngayon po ako'y gumagamit ng D750 na camera wherein umaabot yung kanyang ISO as high as 8,000, no? Or 10,000 kung di ako nagkakamali. So nasa ganon. So kahit madilim dahil mataas yung shutter speed, no, nababawi siya ng ISO, no, na to the extent na hindi naman siya grainy yung image po natin.
Okay, so on the subject of UAAP, what sport do you like the best in terms of sports or moving photography, and why?
Medyo wala talaga akong bias, no, kung saan yung gusto kong type of sports na tinitake ng pictures. Kasi the reason why I became a sports photographer was because of my student. Ako po ay isang guro, no? At ang pamamaraan ko no, kung paano ko ipakita ang suporta sa mga estudyante ko is yung pag-attend ng kanilang mga games, no? At i-immortalize yung mga games nila in terms in the form of photograph, no? At mapakita sa kanila no kung gaano sila kagaling no dun sa field na kanilang gusto, no? So mas madalas kasi ako nanonood ng basketball, volleyball, and ang tawag dito, table tennis. Saka lastly is yung football. Yun.
Okay, so can you, from Kim De Jesus, can you take us back po to the time na nasabi niyo pong, I wanted to pursue photography?
Ayan, no. Kagaya na nabanggit ko kanina, no, my first inspiration to become a photographer was Paul Kiambao, no, na kung saan ang dami niyang mga sikat na imahe ng University of Santo Tomas. No. Pero sa totoo lang, hindi talaga photographer ang gusto ko nung una. No. Gusto ko maging model. Umatanda ako ng mga open photo shoots before for model. No. But eventually, I realized ako hindi pala ako pang model, pang photographer ako. No. Mas magandang ako na lang ang kumukuha ng picture kesa ako yung pinipicturean.
Okay, so in shooting on MOA Arena, do you change the color balance on camera or on software? From Sir Raul.
Ayan, si Sir Raul Quintela is also a photographer in UAAP, no? Ako sir, madalas po hindi ko na binabago yung color balance sa camera mismo, no? Ang ginagawa ko po is sa post-processing na po ako nag-a-adjust, no, ng ilaw or ng color po ng images ko.
Okay, so from anonymous sender, how do you handle your hobby as a videographer, your passion for photography, and being a professional educator at the same time?
It's actually weird kasi marami akong time sa buhay. Sabi nga ng mga friends ko, ako yung pinakakalad ka rin sa aming lahat, no. Though I have a lot of responsibility, sometimes I always make sure, no, that I have time for photography kasi ayun yung distressor ko when I am burned out na sa work as a teacher, no. Mas gusto ko nag-organize or ma-attend ako ng mga games, no, to take photos, no, kasi ayun yung nagiging relaxant ko. Yeah.
Okay, so another question from an anonymous sender, what camera should I buy as a beginner photographer?
Ayan, madalas na tinatanong din sa akin to, no? Especially on my TikTok account. It depends on your needs, pero kung ang restrictions natin is budget, I suggest, no, that you choose an entry-level camera na mga D3 100, yung mga ganyan, no? Na hindi siya ganun kamahal pero it has the functions pa rin naman, no, na kinakailangan natin into taking a good photo.
Okay. So when you go out po and shoot, what essential tools do you usually bring other than camera and lens?
Essential tool. Siguro as a photographer, staple na sa amin, no, na naka-scarf. Kasi mainit sa labas, no? So ayun yung pangtakip namin, no? Kasi when you take a photo or kapag ikaw ay isang photographer, no, ikaw yung nasa initan, not the models, no. So ayun yung sigurong laging meron ako.
Okay. So what last question po. What is your daily routine as a photographer?
What's my daily routine as a photographer? Well, hindi naman kasi ganun kadalas, no, na pinapractice ko yung photography in comparison to teaching, no. Pero if I have an event, no, or a photo shoot, no, syempre una na dyan is tinetest ko muna yung mga gagamitin ko, no. I'll make sure that the battery is full, no. Naranasan ko na umattend ng photo shoot na wala na pala akong baterya. Good thing, no, a co-photographer had an extra battery that he lent me. Ayan, no. So importante 'yon, i-check mo yung battery mo, i-check mo yung iyong memory card, full na ba, no? Or na-transfer mo na ba 'yan, no? Para kung sakasakali man kailanganin mo magbura ng mga images ay okay lang kasi na-transfer mo na siya into a hard drive and the like.
Okay, so there we have it. Thank you po, Sir Jake, for addressing the questions of our audience. To everyone, please stand by for a while as we will be having a short commercial break before we continue on.
Been feeling left behind? Does the knowledge gap hinder your success? Worry no more because Philippine Workshops is here to serve you. We provide relevant and valuable webinars, trainings, and workshops nationwide that will help you make your own opportunities happen. For more details, please visit our Facebook page.
And we are back once again. Salamat po, Sir Jake, for sharing your time, knowledge, and expertise for this event in visual storytelling in photography. And by the way, a friendly reminder to our guests, please fill out the evaluation form, which can be found in the chat box here in our Zoom session or in the comment section of our Facebook live stream if you wish to avail an e-certificate for 30 pesos. Again, this is only optional. The evaluation forms will be closed after some time, so make sure to accomplish them early. Now, let us proceed to the awarding of the e-certificate as a gesture of our gratitude. So this certificate is presented to Mr. Jake Rovin Morales in profound appreciation for imparting his esteemed knowledge and expertise in the event Visual Storytelling, Capture Moments One Frame at a Time, given the 17th day of June 2022 via Zoom meeting signed by our founder, Mr. TJ Yuson, Mr. Aaron J. Quazar Pilarca, the brand head of Philippine Workshops, and Ms. Jasmine Cinco, the brand head of the Wedding Suppliers Association of the Philippines Incorporated. Next, we will be awarding the certificate of participation to our attendees. The certificate is presented to for their active participation in the event Visual Storytelling capture moments one frame at a time. Given the 17th of June 2022 via Zoom meeting signed by our founder, Mr. TJ Yuson, Mr. Aaron Jayosh Quasar Filarco, the brand head of Philippine Workshops, and Ms. Jasmine Singal, the brand head of Wedding Suppliers Association of the Philippines Incorporated. So let us commemorate this moment through a short picture taking session. So everyone, please hold your smiles as we will capture every page of our Zoom session right now. So let's smile while we take some photos. So one, two, three. Okay, since one page lang naman, and we're almost at the end of our program, I would like to call on Mr. Jayosh Filarca, the brand head of Philippine Workshops, to give his closing remarks. Everyone, let's give him a virtual round of applause.
So, good morning, everyone. I am Jayesh Pilarca, the brand head of Philippine Workshops. And on behalf of PHW, I would like to express my gratitude to everyone, the whole PHW team, our multimedia artists, Sir Mel, Miss Rand, and Sir Mark, and to our tech team, Sir Dovan and friends, and to Miss Sai, the master of ceremony, for successfully conducting this webinar. And to all of our participants in the Zoom meeting and on our Facebook live stream. This webinar would not have met the success it has without you. Your coordination has enabled us to conclude this fruitful webinar. And most importantly, I would like to express my appreciation to our guest speaker, Mr. Jake Robin Morales, for sharing his knowledge, experience, and providing us insights about visual storytelling and photography. It's a great pleasure to have you here, and we hope that we get a chance to invite you again to our future webinars. I would also like to congratulate each and every one of you for your dedication and active engagement in conducting this webinar. So let me finish this by saying a job well done and congratulations to everyone. I hope everyone who joined us on our FB Live and Zoom meeting will carry what they have learned here and apply it to their careers as photographers. So once again, I am Jayesh Pilarca, PHW Brand Head. Thank you and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Filarco, for the remarks. On behalf of Philippine Workshops, we would like to thank our brand sponsors for today: Wedding Suppliers Association of the Philippines, Philippine Hotels Directory, Philippine Malls Directory, Online Pasalubong Center, Alabang Real Estate Directory, the Real Estate Directory, Accounting Portal Philippines, Philippine Travel Expo, Philippine Virtual Expo, MedResults Medical Services, and Pahome Service. Make sure to please support WSOP's upcoming events as well. And to Sir Jake, thank you all for being part of this webinar. To our participants and viewers, you can now visit our official website at www.philippineworkshops.com, and make sure to follow Philippine Workshops Facebook page for us to keep you updated with our upcoming events. You may also reach out to us through our email, philippineworkshops@gmail.com, if you have any concerns or suggestion. Once again, I am Zaira Salutan, and this ends Visual Storytelling Capture Moments One Frame at a Time. To our participants, you may also access the link to the evaluation form at Philippine Workshops Facebook page to avail for an paid e-certificate. Thank you to everyone, and have a splendid day ahead.
Hello, good afternoon.